version of draft. Favorite generation has draft. Not favorite generation. Favorite format. Favorite generation would be I don't fucking know. My favorite format has a draft metagame. I didn't know, and apparently it's been around for quite a while, and no one told me. But now we have it. So I want to go over my team. The reason I picked all these mods, other options I was looking at, other people's drafts, the metagame as a whole. What do I think? I just want to talk, okay? Because I fucking love this format. Hang on, I should probably actually get the doc. Yeah, we have the doc, and of course it's using the hideous platinum sprites. Okay, not all of them are bad. Like, what is a good platinum sprite? You could probably argue that the platinum scissor sprite is better than the sprite in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I'm a bit of a Heart Gold and Soul Silver baby, so I'm very biased. I was in pool 20, I believe, 22. This was the pool. I'd say it's a pretty okay pool. Void's team is definitely something special. It's just hard stall, but I feel like hard stall is more viable in DPP compared to like other generations of stall. At least in terms of draft, like there's players who say that stall is broken in OU. Fucking idiots, but I don't know. Give them the time of day, I guess. So my first pick, I was second place. It was clear what I was gonna get. It was always Infernape. Metagross is kind of the first pick. I did hear some people going against first pick Metagross. I don't know enough. I am still very new to DPP draft, but I use whatever I do know about DPP to draft, as well as getting some advice from other people about mods. Some people say Infernape is first. I've seen people say Tyranitar is first. Overall, I think it just makes sense to get Metagross. Metagross it's just so many stats, and the steel type is crazy in this generation. OU, we've got a plethora of steel types, but now not all the steel types are as good. Like my Infernape, I didn't get to get a great steel type. Well, I did get a great steel type, but I got a great steel type by the standards of the generation. Literally any other generation in the future, and Bronzong would be considered a mid Pokemon. Other than Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, it's pretty good there, just because of the way the metagame shapes up. So yeah, I got Infernape. Infernape has been kind of it's been really good for quite a while, from 4 to 7. Now we go back to when it first started, we see in Generation 6, Infernape is extremely good. Generation 7, Infernape only with Z moves, but it is still really good. And Generation 5, it's actually not as great, but it's still very powerful. And all of which is just because of it's tied to an offensive Pokemon. It's just offense. That's it. And in DPP, if you play OU, I will be talking a lot about OU, because I've been playing Gen 4 OU for years. Like, I think 7 years by now. Not super competitively, because I've never played tournaments or anything, but I've known the format. I've watched the evolution of stuff like Magneton and Donphan, and slow rise of Scizor again. And Infernape, it's also kind of had a downfall and kind of a slow rise as far as I can tell. It is not nearly as good as it was at first. Infernape's usage is not that high, but it's kind of coming back. I'm seeing a lot of usage with specifically the new Expert Belt set. People are trying. The issue with Infernape is its longevity. Now, in draft, I don't need to worry about Sandstorm, so I can run as much offense as I want most of the time. I can run a Life Orb freely. That's a luxury on Infernape. Life Orb Infernape, that's unheard of anymore. I can run Expert Bud and stick around for a long time, and I still have the option of Slack Off. Slack Off is still really good if I do face a Tyranitar and want the longevity. Now, I feel like draft is a little more fast-paced. I don't think I'll need that. And I kind of just get everything. The thing about DPP draft that I learned was you need 2 leads minimum. And I consider some Pokemon to like fit half leads. So I used to consider Zapdos a half lead, but the more I play DPP, the more I realize Zapdos is just a crazy good lead, so Zapdos is a full lead. But Pokemon like Cloyster, I don't consider this a 100% lead. It can lead, but I consider this a 0.5, and thus I have Infernape and Cloyster 1.5, and so I want more elites. And then there's Pokemon that can like kind of barely lead. Like a Gyarados is 0.25, Bronzong 0.25, Venusaur is a 0.5. Jolteon's a 0.5 or 0.25, something like that. I consider it that way. So Infernape offensively, it kind of just crushes everything. Like if we look at all my matchups in the battle pools, you can see that Infernape kind of just kills everything if I just position it correctly. You might think, oh, Tentacruel is one of the best checks, and I guess you're not wrong. It is. It is one of the best Infernape checks. People did use Tentacruel in OU3 a bit, but Infernape overall just punches everything. Now if you look at the opposing Infernape, yeah, it kind of punches through my entire team as well. That's just Infernape. I just went to eat lunch and took a 1 hour break. So where did we leave off? We were looking at Infernape, right? I feel like I said just about everything with Infernape. I guess I haven't gone over exactly what the lead set does. So the lead set mostly revolves around Fake Out, Stealth Rock, Taunt, Overheat, maybe U-Turn, maybe Mach Punch, maybe Vacuum Wave, stuff like that. Oh yeah, I quickly want to go over Encore. When some of my friends who are very into Scarlet and Violet saw Encore on Infernape, they lost their mind. Then when they saw 4 to 8 turns, they went ballistic. Encore is not nearly as good in DPP. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen an Infernape use Encore in OU. Because first off, Infernape has 4 move slot syndrome. You cannot run all of Fire Blast, U-Turn, Close Combat, Hidden Power Grass, Thunder Punch, Earthquake, Mach Punch, Vacuum Wave all together. If you if you run Encore, then it's bad. Now you might know that I mentioned Slack Off earlier, and how do you fit that? Thing is that Slack Off gets you more chances to fire attacks off. Encore, you could just kill the Pokemon in front of you. Sure, I guess it's nice to Encore like a Slowbro, but I think U-Turn is just more efficient. Realistically, Infernape will not be a great Encore user. I'm sure that we can find a use for Encore, don't worry. Alright, so the next Pokemon here is Gyarados. So Gyarados in DVB, the reason I chose Gyarados, now people told me I had a few options. I had the options of stuff like, I could get Celebi, I could get Shaman, I could get, I forgot what else was an option for me. What else was available for me? I was Draft Pool 22. Flygon. That would have been a pretty early Flygon. Kingdra is one that I really wanted. I wasn't too sure about it, but I wanted it. So it was stuff like Celebi, Shaman. It was Celebi, Shaman, Flygon, Kingdra, and Gyarados for me. The answer seemed clear to me. It seemed like a very clear Gyarados. Now I know that Draft Gyarados is not nearly as good as OU. But OU Gyarados is really fucking stupid sometimes. I'm not going to be one of those heretics who call Gyarados broken. But it is extremely powerful. This Pokemon is super good in DPP OU. And in Draft, it is definitely also very good. Now, I think Gyarados gets quite a bit of a buff in Draft. It gets a nerf. Everyone can run Hidden Power Electric for it now. Like a Cloyster, for example. But Gyarados, now, I don't have to run Dragon Dance all the time. Now, OU, you didn't have to run Dragon Dance. Gyarados has 3 good sets. It has a physically defensive Rest Talk set. Some of you might be wondering, why would you run a Rest Talk set on a Pokemon that's weak to Stealth Rock? The answer is that Gyarados is just is pretty much the best close combat resist. It was defensive Latias versus defensive Gyarados. And defensive Latias has quite a few problems. Like being, I guess it's not that pursuit weak because you can run Reflect on defensive Latias. But still, defensive Latias versus defensive Gyarados had a lot of problems. Also, Latias wasn't always in OU. Once Latias came back, obviously defensive Gyarados fell quite a bit. But defensive Gyarados is still a very good check to stuff like Lucario and stuff. And the other set was Choice Man. You saw this a lot on stuff like Water Spam, but it didn't have to be Water Spam. You could see Choice Man Gyarados in the lead slot as well. Lead slot can also be Dragon Dance, but Choice Man was also an option. And then you also had weird stuff like Defensive Thunder Wave Dragon Dance. Those are really funny sets. And in Draft, I think you can run those options a lot more easily. Like, let me pick a random team. Void of Darkness. I accidentally landed on one of my friends. You would not bring Choice Man to this. There's a Poliwrath. But if you remove the Poliwrath, you run Choice Man here always. Because Dragon Dance is still slower than Aerodactyl. Which is something I want to mention. Aerodactyl and Jolteon are relatively popular. It's not exactly 25% of teams that have them. But a lot of teams will have Jolteon or Aerodactyl. And thus, you will be slower than them. For example, in my battle pools, where are they? I do indeed face... Yeah, I do indeed face a Jolteon. So I'll have to deal with that. Plus, priority is super prevalent. If you look at all these teams, there's Mach Punch, Vacuum Wave, Infernape. Sure, that doesn't matter as much. There's technically Quick Attack Gliscor, Quick Attack Jolteon, but not super real. E-Speed Dragonite is very real. Choice Band, Bullet Punch, Scizor is terrifying. Ice-Shard Non-Fan is always scary, but thankfully I'm not using a Dragonite. Sucker Punch Honchkrow is something you do have to respect. Kefleon also has Sucker Punch, I guess. Gyarados is just very easy to revenge kill, and that's why I don't think Dragon Dance is super crazy. But I do still think Gyarados is kind of just a cracked Pokemon. So the next Pokemon is Bronzong. I got recommended Bronzong by quite a few players. I really want the Bronzong, but I thought it wasn't a round tree, which I guess is a little stupid. You really want a Steel type, otherwise you're kind of screwed. And my team is the type of team where I can run a Heat-Proof Bronzong kind of easily, because I don't think a Dragon would bring Earthquake against my team, ever. Earthquake doesn't make sense to bring against me. So like if I'm facing Dragonite, I'm expecting a Fire move, and thus I run a Heat-Proof Bronzong. Now that I say that, they're going to run Earthquake against me, but what can I do? So, I mean, I think Dragonite should be mixed against my team anyways. I don't think Dragon Dance is the play ever until my Cloyster. But Bronzong, it is one of my favorite Pokemon in DPP OU. I know it's not super crazy, but it is one of my favorites to use, specifically the OTR set. OTR stands for Offensive Trick Room. Yes, this is the generation where Bronzong could be an offensive threat. 89 attack, but you were able to make Gyro Ball 150 base power with Macho Brace. And yet, so yeah, you basically got almost Choice Band levels of power. Actually, more than Choice Band. Because usually Gyro Ball power is really weird, but it tends to be really weak. Macho Brace, you get massive power, and thus you can do stuff like do 70%, 80% to Latias, do like almost 100% to Flygon, Oko Tyranitar. It's just really easy. Now, Bronzong kind of has specific checks in OU, Skarmory, Rotom. I don't have to deal with that here. Well, I actually still do have to deal with that here. Because something I know, I got pretty unlucky with my Bronzong matchups. Every single team here has a Pokemon that can stifle an OTR Bronzong. Now, that doesn't mean, that's not going to stop me from bringing OTR Bronzong. But there's going to be scenarios where I'll have to be careful about it. For example, this team has Suicune, Shaman, Fortress, and Gliscor. Shaman, not really. I can still smash Shaman. Suicune I can explode on. Fortress, it does force hidden power fire. And Gliscor is one of the Pokemon that can take Gyro Ball really well. Also, something cool that I think people could do. I know I'm kind of shooting myself with this, but I thought this would be cool to tell people anyways. You can run slower Pokemon if you don't need the speed. And thus, take less damage from Gyro Ball from Bronzong. I feel like people already knew that, but just in case. So, and V here has Scizor, which is very dangerous for Bronzong if I don't run Hidden Power Fire. Same with Warrior. We'll have to see how I deal with those. I'm not going to tell you how I deal with those, but I will. And it's not as simple as Hidden Power Fire. I'll see you. Donphan definitely stifles OTR Bronzong a little bit because Gyro Ball does very little. And Lantern, and not really, not Lantern. And Gliscor, once again, is one of the Pokemon that can stall out Bronzong with Roost. Because Gyro Ball only has 8 power points, sadly. So Bronzong offensive Trick Room isn't gonna work. But I've only been talking about offensive Trick Room. I haven't even gone to Bronzong's other sets. So Bronzong has quite a lot of variety in OU, surprisingly. So you got a basic mixed defensive Stealth Rock set, and they run mixed defensive in OU because of the way the landscape is formed. But other options are Choice Band. Choice Band is very good on Bronzong. Trick, Gyro Ball, Explosion, Earthquake is very strong. And then other options for Bronzong include stuff like just offensive Stealth Rocker. Usually they run Akaberry. I've used this set before. It's pretty decent. Stealth Rock, Earthquake, Explosion, Gyro Ball is something that they usually run. It's quite good. It's not really outclassed by Metagross because it's mostly the surprise factor that makes Bronzong better, but also Levitate. Levitate is very much huge. That's kind of why Bronzong hasn't used in OU at all, because Metagross and Jirachi are super good in OU. But in draft, Bronzong, I can use this as a offensive Stealth Rocker, a defensive Stealth Rocker. It just gives me a really good Stealth Rocker, so I don't have to use Infernape for it. And considering my matchups, I might want to use Stealth Rock Bronzong. I've prepped for these already. I won't say how I deal with these. Trust me, I got some really bad sets. Some absolute nonsense. So now we're diving into UU territory. Every Pokemon besides Jolteon here is UU. but Jolteon is unviable in OU anyways. So the first I picked is Venusaur. Venusaur round 4 is a little bit early, just a little bit. The reason I picked Venusaur, I had a lot of options. But I knew I wanted a strong Fire Water Grass core. Infernape and Gyarados are Fire Water Grass candidates, and thus I wanted Venusaur, which is also gives me a ground of poison. Now you might be wondering, why didn't I pick Roserade? Roserade I genuinely think is kind of not great. But also the other reason is because I wanted spikes. I wanted spikes, but I didn't need Roserade for spikes because I already picked. I was second in the draft, so I basically picked 2 Pokemon at once almost. And thus, together at once, I basically picked Venusaur and Cloyster. And because I knew I had Cloyster, or knew I was going to get Cloyster, because I told my good buddy Heine, don't take a Cloyster, buddy. They took Vaporeon. I ended up getting Cloyster for my spikes, and thus I knew I didn't need Roserade. But also because Venusaur is so much more physically bulky, and I do value that on my team. I know I have Pokemon like Cloyster, Bronzong, Gyarados. My team is super bulky. That's kind of a good thing. It's got sufficient offense, and it's super bulky, and good speed. It just doesn't have. It's just kind of average at everything, but it's fine. Venusaur is definitely kind of a definition of average at everything. It's an average Sword Dance Sweeper, an average Special Attacker, an average Choice Scarfer, an average Physical Wall, an average Special Wall. It's just an average everything, but I can use it for that everything. It is going. Being the Grass type is going to be very important that I use this for Suicune and stuff. But another huge thing about Venusaur. One thing that players really hate is that a lot of the good grasses don't resist ground. Roserade, Venusaur, stuff like that. That's why Shaman and Celebi are so highly valued in this. However, I can afford that on my team because I already have Bronzong and Gyarados to deal with ground types. My matchup against ground is genuinely pretty good already. Sure, if you go for the rest of the team, it's just Gyarados and Bronzong, but Cloyster is almost a ground resist itself. Of course, with rocks off, but I'd be switching Cloyster into the ground type as they set rocks. So like Hippowdon versus whatever Pokemon, I switch to Cloyster, they set rocks, and then I Rapid Spin, and nothing happens. Or I just payback and nuke the ghost because you ain't spin blocking my Cloyster, baby. Anyways, yeah, Venusaur. Oh yeah, and also has Knockoff. Knockoff is extremely good in this. I think Knockoff is very good in DPP. People might underrate it. I know I don't have Sandstorm to really feel the effect of no leftovers, but I have Leech Seed, so it's still pretty good. Yeah, Venusaur is just kind of my everything. It's a catch-all. It's not great, but it's solid enough. I play a lot of DPP UU. I'm not even that big of a Venusaur fan in DPP UU. I know it's the best Pokemon in the tier, but I usually use I usually use all the grasses in DPP UU. DPP UU has a ton of grasses. Leafeon, Sceptile, Tangrowth, Ludicolo. There's definitely one that I'm forgetting about right now. Torterra. I use all of these. And Venusaur, I definitely use Venusaur a lot. But, eh. So next up is Cloyster. This is a Pokemon that I genuinely just think is bad in UU. In UU, Cloyster kind of sucks, in my opinion. In OU, it actually has a niche as a lead. I don't think it's the worst. And Ubers is actually where I think Cloyster's pretty good. I think Cloyster's a great DPP Ubers lead. I know there was a time where I was thinking, it's not actually that good. No, it is pretty good. It matches up very well into a lot of the leads. It matches up great into Deoxys Speed with Payback and Ice Shard and stuff. So Cloyster is a great in DPP Ubers, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about its use in draft. And I just think it has a lot of use with Spikes and Rapid Spin. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable drafting Cloyster because it's weak to rocks as my spinner, but I don't think my team super need rocks off. I did some research. Cloyster fits best on teams that don't need rocks removed multiple times. I think that my team can afford that because Gyarados is going to either come in at the end of the game or be an early game Pokemon. It's one of the two. So Cloyster, I think I can get away with using Cloyster as my spinner. Now, I also wanted to prioritize favorite Pokemon, so I got Bronzong, Cloyster, Spiritomb. Those are some of my favorites. Another thing is that this slot was supposed to be a Glalie. Most of my plans had a Glalie on it, but I know that you cannot draft Gyarados without a Rapid Spinner. So I knew I needed a spinner somewhere, and that's where things got messy. A lot of my teams had Donphan instead of Venusaur, and that made things rough because then what is my matchup in the Water-type Pokemon? Also, I just think Donphan's a bad Pokemon. I don't like Donphan. I think it's bad. And in the end, I just realized that Cloyster actually gives me a lot of roll compression. It's a water resist. It's obviously not my main water resist, but the fact that it has explosion it's good enough as a check the water types, especially Gyarados, which I at this point I really want to check the Gyarados. Especially because I didn't know I'd be getting Jolteon later. But it's also a good spiker, it's a lead, it has rapid spin. Toxic spikes are also quite potent, and it's worth considering. It also gives me a second explosion Pokemon. I value at least a little bit of explosion. I think Cloyster's a good explosion candidate. I don't think it has that much set variety. Offensive, defensive, yada yada yada. It's also pretty fun to EV. I did some EV training on Cloyster. It was very fun. So that's Cloyster. Spiritomb and Jolteon were my next picks. Honestly, my team really didn't need Spiritomb. Sure, I don't mind a spin blocker, but I really don't need one. This is where I kind of just prioritize favorites. Until I realize this is literally my only Pokemon that deals with Gengar. So Spiritomb is actually ridiculously important for my team. I don't have anything for Gengar, especially the Venusaur is not a check. Bronzong gets destroyed by Will-O-Wisp Shadow Balls over time. But Spiritomb, this thing actually deals with it. Now you might be thinking I'm weak to Will-O-Wisp, I just run Lumberry. And sure, it can Will-O-Wisp me twice, but I can predict that easily. Because the Gengar's not switching out. I can just Shadow Ball this thing in Gengar, and I can always pursue whenever I need to. Because Spiritomb gets 4-hit KO'd by Shadow Ball. And now Fierce Flame, for my buddy, told me that Choice Specs Gengar is always coming into me. If it is Choice Specs, I will mercilessly mock the user of the Gengar. I think Choice Specs is so bad against me. That's actually not true. Choice Specs is terrifying. Especially with spikes up. But hey, I'm sure I can deal with it. Especially because I have my next pick, Jolteon. This is kind of my matchup into Zapdos and Raikou. But also, it gives me a check the Gyarados. Specifically, it's for my own Gyarados. The reason is because I wanted a ground type. Now, I don't think ground types are needed in the DBP draft. But they're still very good, of course. And Jolteon here is actually my ground type. And yes, this is a real thing you can do in Modern Draft. I don't think it's the greatest thing, but you can bring a Volt Absorb or Lightning Rod Pokemon as your Volt Switch immunity in the future. Obviously, we don't have to deal with Volt Switch here, but this is still my electric immunity for Gyarados. So instead of Gyaravirr, this is Gyarajolt. But in the future, if you want to draft a Thundurus Therian, then please terrestrialize it and please make it good, because Thundurus Therian is not the greatest Pokemon. And finally, Rampardos. This was a very enticing 3-pointer for me. Initially, this was Regigigas. I thought Regigigas could be cool with stuff like Thunder Wave and stuff, and I'm pretty sure it has knockoff in this generation. Yep, it does. I thought that would be pretty cool, but I got told it was bad, so that's unfortunate. It doesn't have Protect, I get it. But Rampardos, now this Pokemon is very cool, because I have a Bronzong, a Trick Room Explosion Pokemon. This is very cool. Now, Rampardos, I don't actually think it needs Trick Room. The low tiers in DPP, you do actually see yourself bringing them a decent amount. You can absolutely bring your like V here can bring Roselia, Lantern, and Kecleon whenever they want. It's not super easy, but it's always viable. And my boy Rampardos, there are some nasty matchups in the future that I could see myself bringing Rampardos to. Let us take a look at a random team here. Sep. Rampardos just obliterates this immediately. Oh no, Rampardos. Yeah, Rampardos is gonna be fun. Is it good? No. Am I missing Head Smash? Yes. Especially in a format where I'm gonna have to battle over and over, I will miss Head Smashes if I keep bringing Rampardos. So I can't just willy-nilly bring it. Will I bring it in any of the pool battles? We'll see. I'm not. It's not good. It's not a good Pokemon. Or am I? I'm probably not bringing Rampardos.